Okay, people. So today I'm joined by Nate Hilgartner. Is that
That's right. Yeah,
boom? Right, we're here with Nate to talk about his feature directorial debut, No Choice.
that's right.
Nate, thank you for stepping by, man. Appreciate that.
Thanks for having me, Kevin.
No worries, man. So, feature directorial debut. How
Yes,
does
indeed.
that feel, man?
It's just a dream come true. Truly, a lifelong dream come true. I was so lucky to get to make this film in my hometown with my family as co-producers. My cousin Shannon
Mm.
Semler, my parents Kathleen O'Neill and Steve Hilgartner. When I wrote the script, when I proposed the project to them, they all jumped in with both feet. They said, "Let's do it." And putting this team together in Ithaca, New York, my hometown, uh, a team composed partly of people from Ithaca that I've known for a long time and grown up with, actors, members of the community who chipped in various ways, along with professionals from New York, chiefly our star Hannah Deale and our cinematographer Alex Podolyanchuk. It's so amazing. You write a good script and people come together from all different corners of your world, and suddenly you've got a movie. It's extraordinary.
Yeah, like looking at your IMBD, right? There's not a whole lot there. There's
No,
not a
there's
whole lot there.
not.
So, what was it that made you feel like this was the time, right? That this was the time, and also that you had what it takes to get something like this done?
It's a great question. It's like they asked Orson Welles, when he made Citizen Kane and invented all these new camera techniques and storytelling tricks. They said, "How did you do that?" And he said, "Sheer ignorance. I didn't know it couldn't be done, so I just did it."
Mm.
And that's kind of what making a feature was like for me. I've written scripts for many years. I've worked in script development. I've directed plays. I've directed actors, my whole life, and was an actor. And so I understand how actors work and how their psychology works and how to get good performances out of people. And I think imagistically and I write imagistically. So I said, lots of great directors had their first start on a low budget feature and, might as well go for it. And people said to me, you haven't made any shorts. You don't know what you're doing. And they were right. I didn't know what I was doing, but I surrounded myself with people who did, and so I'd say, "Can we do this?" And they'd say, "Let's try it some way," and we'd try it, and if it didn't work, we tried something else, and that kind of commitment, you know. The other thing I did is I told everybody in my life I'm making this movie, and that meant they were going to hold me to it. I couldn't back
Yeah,
out.
yeah, yeah,
I had,
yeah,
I had to, save face. You got to do it somehow. Burn all your boats.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's how it
Okay.
happened.
Well, learning that you know what I mean, you directed theater, you act like that. Okay, because as I said, yeah, IMVD, there's nothing there,
It's
right?
nothing.
So it looks
Nothing
like
there.
you literally just stepped in, you know what I mean, completely blind and did this thing,
Yeah.
which mad props for that. But
Thank you.
yeah, I guess having that experience directing and acting gives you some sort of understanding of what this is, right? The things that work, and especially on the acting front, the things that you like, right?
Mhm.
Or because I think we've all been in those jobs where you're just like, man, like managers are dicks. Like, why are they doing this? Or why are we doing it like that? And so you then go, okay, I don't appreciate people doing this. So I'm gonna do it this way. So, like all of that, I imagine gave you those things as well. Would you say?
Definitely, definitely, definitely. Having acted, I knew more about acting, and yes, I've worked with directors that leave something to be desired in their understanding of the material or whatever it may be. Um, but the other thing is my long experience writing. I mean, and working. Like I said, I worked in Hollywood script development, so I read so many scripts and learned what doesn't
Mm,
work and what works. Really, I hope well. Um, and the thing that's so sad is that there are so many great actors in the world who are being wasted on bad scripts. The greatest actor can lend some quality of emotionality to a bad script that makes you say they did a good job, despite it not being a good movie. Um,
yeah.
So once I had written something that was good enough, then it was time to say, all right, let's get the actors onto it. Let's get a brilliant DP who knows how to shoot things and make them look beautiful, even with just a little bit of money and some borrowed equipment. That was how we did it, and that's why the result is what it is.
I mean, there is something to that, but also though, how many times have you seen these films that get made and it's like, man, this film was voted like the 2023 film on the blacklist, and then it gets made and you're just like, wait, everyone was talking about that script? How? You know what I mean? So sometimes like you hear that this script was phenomenal, but the end product isn't great. So like, was there still doubt going into things?
Totally. There was doubt. There was always doubt. Will this work? And actually, to your point, what I wrote was by no means a perfect script. It was enough to go on, but there were significant changes in the edit. There were rewrites going. I was doing rewrites, before shoot days as well, because either we were figuring out how to do things with our limited resources and realized a shortcut, cut this scene. It doesn't need to be there. Or whether it was reconceiving of certain plot points, that in the edit we changed and fixed. I think maybe there's a thing where some of those scripts on the blacklist are like, they're like perfect screenplays, which means there's nowhere to go when you actually go and make the thing. There's nowhere to develop. It's like something that's worked out like clockwork, like a mystery novel, but it's a little lifeless. Whereas when you go in with a script that's like almost there but not quite, then the director part of you takes over, and says, how can we change this? And then in the edit, you say, all right, we've shot this. How do we actually make it into a sequence that works? And it's always creativity. It's always approaching it fresh, like it's a new thing, which it is.
Yes. Yeah. And I think there is that thing about not knowing, right? Because the amount of times early in my career, like marketing comms pays the bills, you know what I mean? And you go somewhere and they're like, oh, we want you to change, you know what I mean, completely revolutionize our strategy, but there's no budget. Right. So then you'd have to try and work out, okay, how am I gonna do? So you know what I mean, you discover things, right? You work things out. There was one time I used Google Maps to create a map of all of our locations because we had nothing. And they were so blown away by that. But I'm just like, I mean, anyone could have done this, you know what I mean? But it was just like, you were just, okay, what can I do? And then all of a sudden I get a budget to like actually produce it properly and everything. But it's just like not knowing means anything's possible.
Yeah.
And
When there's no
a
plan, you make the plan. Yeah. Yeah. And this was like, things kept just happening, beautiful little coincidences, like we were scouting in Ithaca trying to figure out where we were going to shoot. And we needed a location that was going to be a store. The main character works in this convenience store, like gas station convenience store. And one of the first buildings we looked at that was listed as a commercial real estate building for rent turned out to be a I don't remember how many square feet, vast out of business grocery store. And as soon as we walked in, my EP, who's also my dad, and I, Steve, walked into this room, we could see suddenly this could be a whole movie studio. We could build every interior in here. We could take this big building and put the store in one corner there, and the trailer there where she lives in another corner over there. We walked into the break room. It looked like a medical office. We said, okay, this is the doctor's office. We went into the back room, which is like a warehousey kind of space, and said, okay, we can shoot all the dream sequences in here. It's a black box. You can do anything you want in here. And instantly we realized like this has just made this way more doable than it looked a day ago, because this is our Paramount Pictures. Now we've got a studio, we've got a bunch of sound stages ready to be built, and then that meant we could stash our equipment in there. You go from shooting one scene in one location to another. It's a company move of walking across a building rather than driving across town, you know, with all your gear. It made things so much easier.
Mm. Yeah, no, that's like in the first place you looked at.
Yeah, basically the first place we looked at.
Woo.
Those things, you know, you keep feeling this weird, like the universe is lining things up very nicely for us.
Mm.
You know, let's keep pushing along. You know, that little voice inside you that says maybe it can't be done gets quieter and quieter every time. You know, it's important to have a dialogue with that voice. It's important to keep it in the conversation, but ultimately forge ahead. That's what I've
Yeah.
learned. Yeah.
Oh man. Like when you were writing scripts
Hmm.
and all of this, right? Was there anyone who you were kind of looking up to? Was there a type of film you were aspiring to, you know, have your take on, right? Put your mark on. What was looking like might be a Nate Hilgartner film to you as you were coming up?
It's also a good question. Um, as a writer, you know, there are two things I admire, and people think of them as being intention, but I don't think they have to be. One is compelling characters, and the other is a well structured story. People
Mm,
talk about a plot driven movie versus a character driven movie. I don't believe that those have to be interchangeable.
yeah,
Um,
agree.
and there's even a kind of philosophically, you know, like what is a character? Your character is revealed through your actions. You know, what is the action in the plot of the story? It's revealed by the nature of the characters. They act in the way that they would act, and they're defined by how they act. You know, so there's like it's two sides of a coin. Um, in terms of what does a Nate Hilgartner film look like, you know, the directors that I love the most uh, all have their own voice where you can tell it's them no matter what kind of movie it is, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and I would love in this career that I, you know, am embarking on to get the chance to make a lot of different kinds of movies that nevertheless have that stamp that I hope is embedded in the characters and in the plot. Uh, there's nothing more I can really say to define it other than that. Just stay tuned, see what I do next.
Mm. Were there writers that you were just like, oh man, I would love to, you know what I mean, be able to write stuff like Mamet or you know what I mean, like
Mhm,
Nolan or just like
mhm.
who were those people for you?
Those are two greats, and they each have their own style, you know? There's always the risk, though, that every character, you know, I love Aaron Sorkin, but every character in a Sorkin script sounds like Aaron Sorkin. It's a world where everybody talks like that, you know?
Yes.
And I try not to become my characters too much. I try to let them speak to me. The most beautiful thing that happens in writing, and people think this is corny and fake, but it's real. It's a real thing that happens. Your characters take on a life of their own and they do something that surprises you. You have a
Mm,
plan for where you need to get them, and you either don't know how you're going to get them there or they derail you, but somehow they will rise up and speak at certain moments, you know? Martin McDonough said, you know, like, Colin surprised me when he cut off his finger in Banshees of Inisherin, you know? And I believe him. Like, yeah, I believe that that came as a surprise to the guy sitting at the keyboard writing it, you know? Um, you know, but then the other thing is that you're only halfway done when you've written it.
yeah.
Uh, you have to, and another great writer director, Greta Gerwig says, you know, you have this little candle flame, and then you pass it off to the actor, and you say, it's yours now. You know, you now are going to complete the act of turning this person into something real. Because what I had was just an idea, but now you know more than I know, and this is your journey now, you know. And I said that very clearly to Hannah Deale, our lead, at the start of this process, you know. And we had these long sessions of talking about what is Amy like, what is she not like, what are her memories, what are her hopes and dreams, you know. And we also, because of our limited budget and because we were building these sets in this broken down grocery store, like I said, when we built the interior for Amy's bedroom, we gave Hannah free reign to do set design. So she
Mm,
like decorated the room the way that she would, or the way that she imagined that Amy would have done as a younger girl, you know, in her teenage years. And she drew these moons on the wall that were like really beautiful, and she strung up colored cloth and put up all these paint swatches that we had gotten from the paint store because we were figuring out what paints to use as interiors. Everything was like stuff around the studio that was just getting reused. But it worked so well. I think it helped her clarify her character. And it means that look on IMDb, she's got a production design, a set design credit under our art department, along with a bunch of other great student interns from Ithaca College who did such detailed and persistent work on that stuff. So it's just great. You have a team that comes together, and everybody wears a different hat every day.
Yeah.
Part of the fun.
Yeah, for sure. Like, what other kind of like foundations did you give Hannah for the character? Were there like movies that you'd seen or books you've written, and you know there's characters in you'd be like, yeah, I feel that she would be, like this person, or this type of thing? Were there those reference points that you had for her?
We didn't talk about it so much in terms of movies. We talked about it more in terms of what was her experience growing up? What's her relationship with her mother like? And there's a lot of stuff you'll see. Hannah is an actor who does such a beautiful job of showing that emotions are being contained without revealing too much of those emotions. Throughout the film, she's kind of at this low simmer and things come out in moments, but you can see that this is a person who doesn't get to really feel her feelings a lot of the time. She's got to be a different kind of person for other people in most of the context in her life, so she's restraining it. And that means that there's a lot of stuff. I think that what helped Hannah do that so beautifully, in addition to her talent for that style of acting, is we talked about these major events that were sort of buried in this character's past. And one of them it has to do with her brother. Throughout the movie, you kind of notice on the wall, there's this portrait of this young man in a Marine Corps uniform and triangular American flag below. And you gradually figure out like, oh, this is the brother who's dead now. And we never quite explain how. And Hannah and I had a conversation where we decided on a way that happened, but it's clear that this young man went off to war and he's no longer with us. And that this is a huge tragedy in the family, probably led Amy's mother, Deborah, into her opioid addiction. That's something I also talked about with Jennifer Herzog, who played Deborah so beautifully. And so there's this wound in their family that they're never talking about, but that both actors were playing out of, so you talk about things like that with the character, and that the architecture of a person's life comes together, and suddenly the actor, because acting is reacting naturally, truthfully to imaginary circumstances, suddenly they're like, okay, I know who I am. Oh, this is, I'm feeling this real pain because I know where this person is in their life,
Yes. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. There was a shot with Amy that I really liked, and it's after being with Seth and all of that, and she's in the garage, and we're at the distance and we're pulling in towards her, and she's kind of got her arms down on the counter and she's just looking, and there's just this kind of emptiness, this kind of like trapped look on her face, and it's just like, oh man, that resonates.
I totally agree, and it's Hannah's, like I said, it's Hannah's performance that she's showing how much is roiling under the surface, but she can't be fully inhabiting that, screaming or whatever it would be. I have to also credit our composer, Jonas Tarm, wrote fantastic music. The cue at that shot builds really beautifully, just as the camera push in does, but yeah, I mean, I conceived of moments like that as being a way of doing horror cinema without anything supernatural. That's a horror moment. That's dread overcoming someone, and yet there's nothing, the situation she's in, unfortunately, is extremely real, and there are many people living in that horror right now. And so I'm so glad you identified that. That's like, that exemplifies sort of the idea of the movie, that we could do this totally realistic horror movie, call attention to that issue that is people living in a horror story right now in America, getting
Yeah.
more relevant every day, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, that's definitely something, right? You know what I mean? It's just dealing, and that's a weird thing, right? Because the term horror, you imagine supernatural, you imagine slashers, you imagine so many things, right? But there is that sense of horror when you're trapped in a situation that you just can't seem to find your way out of. It's like you're down a well,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not even the tallest of wells. You can kind of see the top, but it's still out of reach. Still out of reach. And you've tried so many things, but you just cannot get to that ledge.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that can be life at times, right? So that's a horror, right? So you're right, like this kind of situation, this kind of story, it does have those horror tones to it, for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and then we wanted to play with horror images, which we did through the dream sequences, which get very surreal, and every one has a different character, and we really tried to define them each against each other. And then also through, you notice all the times she's holding the knife. You talk about a
Mm,
slasher film, that's like an iconic slasher film knife, but I wanted the audience to constantly be wondering, what is she going to do with that knife? How come when she realizes she might be pregnant or is pregnant, the first thing she does is start staring down into the drawer in her mother's kitchen at this huge knife? What does that mean? I wanted to create that very urgent sense of unease. I'm not going to spoil what happens with the knife, but if you see the film, some people have said that knife is sort of like a character in the movie, and it kind of is.
mm,
You gotta have a
yeah.
totemic object or two to tell a story like this.
Yeah, I've got to say, one of my favorite um kind of hallucination fever dream sequences is the one with oh, the names. You've got um, Jenny,
Mhm.
right? Jenny and Deborah.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
You know the one?
I know the
Like,
one.
and yeah, like wh- now it's weird, it's creepy, but I was wondering, is it the kind of parasitic relationship of a dealer and the addict?
Mhm.
Was that part of that?
Definitely. Yeah. And
Okay, yeah.
also, Amy realizing that in the dream, I don't really wanna spoil the dream, uh, but there's a substitution of mother and daughter going on in the dream that's
Mm,
very toxic, and it's also Amy realizing that this other complication and destructive relationship in her mother's life has thwarted her own plans and hopes and possibility of uh, getting out of her situation. And then the dream is really scary, and she wakes up from the dream, and there's her mom comforting her, but saying, "What were you dreaming about?" And she doesn't want to tell her mom. And so, actually, the scene after, in a way, is scarier. At least I hope it carries a different charge, because what's really threatening, one of the things that's really threatening her at this moment is how's her mom going to react when she learns, um, because of her mother's conservative religious ideals. Um, so it's a moment of distancing, between what would otherwise be a loving mother-daughter bond. Oh, I'm so sorry, baby, you had a bad dream. I'm trying to comfort you.
mm. I
You
mean,
see her.
those kind of scenes were very jarring, right?
Hmm.
Because you have those moments where Deborah is trying to comfort Amy, but then you've got the moments of like, I just need this thing. What kind of daughter are you? And just those toxic situations, right? And because you've got the religious iconology around the place, as you've got that as a juxtaposition to all of that stuff, which is super interesting. And it really, magnifies what Amy is going through.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and, what Amy's going through is a consequence of what Deborah's going through because, like we said, she lost her son, um, and she is trying to hold to her faith to get her through that, and you wonder how well it's working because she's also turned to this other thing, that's got her knocked out for hours on end on the couch. And, opioids are so powerful and so addictive, and
Mm.
it's a scourge ravishing, this country and many countries in the world. Um, and and of course, it's happened under the guise of medical necessity that that these things were widely prescribed and got out into the world as a matter of course. And so part of what we're saying in the film about the broken healthcare system is right there on the couch with Deborah. um, but I wanted to portray her as really sincere in her faith and sincere about wanting to be a good mother, and yet there are these forces fighting for her soul. She's caught between her addiction and her grief and um, her ideals that can lead to a kind of rigidity and a kind of failing to see what the person you love in front of you actually needs. um,
Mm.
and so there's a tragedy there with that character. And Jennifer went really deep into Deborah, and excavated a lot of her own pain in ways that were beautiful and such a gift to the film and to the viewer, and made me worry about her a little bit sometimes. But she got through it, just as Hannah did. Hannah went to such dark places and got through it. And part of how they both got through it was we had my parents' dog Luli, who's a beautiful and happy and a little bit anxious little mid-sized white golden doodle. She was on set for all the emotional scenes, and after our actors had cried and screamed and gone deep into their souls, then it's time to play with the dog and recuperate a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I imagine that must have been a big help.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. The thing when I'm, watching and seeing Deborah, I kind of got the sense of, as you said, someone that wants to be this loving mother, right? Wants it to be there for Amy, and someone that uses religion as a support system. But also, I don't know, like I got the kind of sense that she's the person that is like, I'm putting everything into God's hands
Hmm.
without doing anything to try and mitigate that situation. You know what I mean? So unless she's getting something that is perceived to be a sign from God, like nothing is gonna get done, kind of thing, which can put you in that trap, that vicious cycle of, what I mean, not moving out of something, you know?
Not moving out. I mean, yeah, it's if you're talking about addiction, it's really hard for people to move out of addiction. And you know, obviously a religious conversion, a religious experience can really help with that, and has helped people. And when she tries to quit, you see her kind of going cold turkey. She's lying on the couch just saying our fathers over and over again, hoping that that will get her through. Um, and as to why, well, I'm not going to spoil it again, but
Mm.
she, as to, her relationship with her daughter and the issue of abortion as it's seen by the Christian right in America, um, I think it's really tragic that people who claim to live their lives by the message of Jesus Christ uh, fail to offer compassion in some cases to the people who are struggling. I mean, Amy she's the poor, she's the downtrodden, she's the meek who are supposed to inherit the earth. Um, you know, Jesus's message was forgiveness and compassion, and Amy is pleading with her mother for forgiveness and compassion, and there are moments in the film where walls come up between them that are the walls of doctrine, as opposed to, you know, the breaking down of walls that love can do. And so, you know, I never intended with the film to attack anyone's religious beliefs. I never intended with the film to be too sharp about calling out hypocrisy, because I don't think Deborah's a bad person. I think she is trying. Uh, and yet, what she's in the grip of and the consequences of that young man being sent off to Afghanistan, you know, um, they're bigger than her.
Yeah. But I kind of feel that, you know, it's not necessarily about good or bad, right? With the person, because what you do see with some people, not everyone, some people, that religion creates those barriers. You know what I mean? Because people were told that this is verbatim, right? It's in the book, or this is my interpretation of the book. Because when you break it down, a lot of times there's nothing that actually says the thing that people were saying, right? But they're like, oh, no, it's this line, right? This line means this thing.
Oh, I lost you, I think. Are you
So
still connected?
then people are, right? That fault. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Wait, are we synced up?
Uh,
Yeah. So I heard
okay.
most. I think I heard most of what you said. I totally agree. You know, it's the thing where what's written down in the book. Many people disagree with this, but what's written down in the book are just words. Um, they're a record of something that happened. They're a
Yeah.
record of something someone said. They're a record of a story that probably the way to interpret most of those stories is as having a greater meaning than just this literally occurred, you know. But people want to hold on to something firm, and they say, here's this interpretation of this book and it's the truth, and my interpretation of it is right for all times and for all people everywhere, and everyone, and that becomes I think a very destructive force in the world. I think, you know, to use the words of a teacher who taught compassion, forgiveness, and kindness to lock people up and you know, close down our rights and our freedoms is a deep misinterpretation, but it's very widespread in this country right now.
Yeah. Especially when we know the book was rewritten several times, at least to our understanding. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
not the original words anyway.
right. Well, the textual history is really interesting, and you know, I think the more you learn about it, the more interesting it becomes. But yes, people act as if it's one thing that came transmitted directly at one time, and then therefore it's the only thing you need to know or do anything with. And also, furthermore, their idea of it is right for you, you know,
Mm.
and should be on, you know, guiding the law of the land, you know, like we're living in some theocracy, you know. It's just not. It's not what it's a misinterpretation also of, you know, our constitution and our system of government, you know, imperfect though that is. It's supposed to guarantee people's freedom, including freedom of worship. It's not supposed to create a situation where, you know, preachers are telling people how to live.
Mm. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, there was one thing that I did not even know, right, in the film, because you do the whole count, right? 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And when we get to 5, and then when she goes to the hospital, then it jumps to 7. And I was like, wait, they count it from that?
Yeah.
That seems real squirrely. You know what I mean? But I had no clue that's what happens. They count it from that moment, which
Yeah, they
seems
count it, they count it from the last period, which is generally 2 weeks before the sexual encounter happens that causes the woman to become pregnant. I mean, it's crazy, but it physiologically that makes sense because it's about the uterine lining, you know. But
mm,
how can you be 2 weeks pregnant before you've had sex? You know,
yeah.
That doesn't make any sense at all. And it certainly, for a legal standard, it makes, I mean, that the fact that there are many states where at 6 weeks, which is to say 4 weeks after sex, you're not allowed to have an abortion.
Mm.
A lot of women don't know they're pregnant
No.
at 6 weeks, because that would just be 2 weeks after a late period. Some people's periods fluctuate within a window of that size or more. So yeah, no, and it's true that a character like Amy, lots of people, before I did the research for the film, I didn't know, about the 6 week, 5 week, 7 week thing. So yeah, that's a moment. I'm glad that moment landed powerfully with audiences, because it's just crazy that the laws are set up that way.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. I think what's I think it's like the big question really is, for your first film, you decided to make you decided to tell a story like this. Like, why was this the story, Nate?
I mean, I think, as you can tell from hearing me talk, I'm paying a lot of attention to the things that are happening in this country, um, including the things that don't directly implicate me. I mean, I'm a man. I can't get pregnant. I can't have an abortion. I can't be subjected to laws governing women's bodies in the way that a person like Amy can. Um, but noticing what's going on makes me feel sort of called to say something about it. So after Roe versus Wade was overturned in 2022, this idea for this movie came to me basically in a flash, and I was like, okay, that's a movie with that. That's a movie that should be made. I don't think it's a movie any studio is going to make. I don't think it's a movie that you know uh, is just going to fall out of the ether. And I knew I could make it in Ithaca, and I knew that I could write it, and that there are a lot of brilliant and committed women who could help me refine the perspective of the character, who I, can imagine partly, but have no direct experience with that thing happening.
Mm.
And I knew that if we could find an actor who could play that role, it would work. And then the question was just, how much money can we get together? And how can we stretch that to make these dream sequences cool and scary and interesting and surreal and cinematically engaging, while we tell this very bare bones social realist drama about a person caught in this right up to the minute reality that, unfortunately, the real world has like exceeded what we were portraying as a scary near future, is now either upon us or about to be upon us.
Okay. Was there a fear, right? Because, we're in this time where I think sometimes women feel that men are invading their spaces,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's sports or, just other things. It can feel like, some people are trying to talk down to women, like, or dictate how women should be navigating life.
Mm-hmm.
So, was there a worry that may be thrown at you with you deciding to tell this story?
Yeah, of course there was a worry about that. Yeah. um, and that's why I asked so many women to read the script and tell me what I was missing, because um, a movie, is not made by one person. Filmmaking is a team sport. You know, like I said before, so much of what you see on screen, not only do you literally see Hannah playing Amy in every single scene in the film, but so much of the story comes from Hannah, from
Mm,
Hannah's interpretation of Amy, and from Hannah's input on how Amy would do things, and what was going to be the real content at the heart of the film. But yeah, I wanted to make sure that women reading the script felt that it was truthful before I went ahead and made it. And then overall, the response has been really, you know, the thing about it is that it's a story. It's a movie that the story is about that thing you're talking about. It's about men who made these laws telling this woman how to live her life. It's about, the male doctor saying to her, young lady, that baby's only coming out of you one way. She's asking for help, and she's asking for the person in authority over medicine to tell her, what are my options for making decisions about my own body here, so I can see that is a real thing, and I can tell a story about it, and then getting the help from the female perspective to make sure that everything is shown correctly was just a matter of having a great team together.
Yeah, it's definitely, because that's the thing, right? Like, you can have a great story, but if the casting isn't right, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right? You can have a great cast, a great story. If the lighting doesn't work,
Yeah.
story fails.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so it's all very much dependent on all of these things coming together. And you as director being able to really conduct the orchestra. You know what I mean? Because you can have all of these great things, but don't always work. I remember, oh God, what? Ah, man, I cannot remember what year it was, but Washington, man, like, back then it was the Redskins. Now, obviously now it's Commanders, but we got Deion Sanders. Now, obviously, it wasn't prime Deion, right? But you're just like, oh my God, wait, Deion Sanders is wearing the red and gold? Oh my day. And we got some other great players. And it was just like, I don't want to jinx it, but we might be going Super Bowl, baby. It might be our year. It was not. It was not. It wasn't even close. And that was the thing, though. You had all of these parts that were great, could not come together, as a unit. And yeah, so that's the thing. It's finding those parts, it's making it work. So for you, how was it finding those parts? What was that journey as a first-time film director to be able to put together that team,
Yeah, it was totally exhilarating, because every time the person who we needed to do that role, whatever it was, presented themselves, it was like, oh yeah, one more member of the band, member of the orchestra, member of the team, who brings their own set of skills and their own outlook and their own sensibility to the table. The main one, the person who has just made the whole thing possible from a technical standpoint, is our cinematographer, Alex Podolyanchuk. Alex works harder than anyone, and he's got all this gear, and he's got all these relationships with people who lend him gear. And he knows, I didn't go to film school. He went to film school. He knows how to make a movie. He's made, I don't know how many shorts. I hadn't made any shorts, but he'd made a ton. So, and where I'm always paying attention to story and character, he's paying attention to how do we make this shot, the one right in front of us, beautiful. And then the next one, and then the next one after that, So he helped guide the sort of technical process. And I should also shout out to our AD, Matt O'Brien, who also film school grad, has been on a million sets, has run a million sets, has made a million films, and has worked, on the professional side a ton. And he saw our little ragtag outfit and knew exactly how to, bring the most exacting professional standards to what otherwise would have been a total mess. Kept us organized, as an AD is supposed to do, but also he had a lot of creative fixes. Those two really made sure everything actually happened and got done. And then my cousin Shannon Semler, who was our lead producer, has worked on television and documentaries, and there were, in terms of having things ready that needed to be ready next week but nobody could attend to now, like setting up that entire store, which she did, guiding the intern team in just a couple of days. I should also mention she gave some of the most important script notes at the in the early stages I was talking about before. So every time people join the team, it's like new blood, literally, in the body.
Mm.
It's like this injection of energy and potentiality, and then you know suddenly it's bigger than any one person by far, and it takes on life in a new way.
Mm.
Hmm.
Yeah. So you found all of these people, these credential individuals with all that knowledge, all those skills, right?
Yeah.
How did you get them to believe in you? Right? They've gone to film school, they've worked on these sets, they've got what it takes. They know, they've been in the trenches. This guy called Nate has approached them to make this film, right? This controversial film dealing with topics that are very inflammatory, right? How did they then go, man, that's our Nick Fury, right? We're going to form these Avengers. Let's go. How did you convince these people to trust you to steer this ship, man?
I don't know, to be completely honest. Uh, I showed them the script. They read the script. They must have seen something in it. But as I said, the script at that stage was not what the film has turned out to be.
Mm,
I talked to them, and they probably thought this guy has a lot of passion and a lot of conviction and not a lot of experience. And uh, they signed on anyway. So I'm grateful. Uh, but I do think when you have passion and conviction and you've talked to people, you can inspire them up to a point, and maybe enough to get them to see what they can bring to what would otherwise be a train wreck. They
mm.
say, all right, he's got this and that, he doesn't know anything about this other thing, but I do. So let's team up and see where this thing goes. And probably people signed on thinking, well, it's not going to be a very good movie, but it's a credit, it's a thing to do. Now we won Dances with Films. We
Mm.
are getting a lot of critical attention that is extremely favorable. And I think everybody is maybe a little surprised but delighted that our hard work has paid off in this way so far. And we'll see where it goes next.
Yeah. I mean, what was that like? Firstly, getting into the festival, right? But then winning the fest. Like, what were those emotions like in those two different instances?
I mean, disbelief. Getting in was such a uh, it felt like such a vote of confidence. Here's the thing we made for so little money, and somebody out there has seen it and said, yeah, this has merit. um, Going out to the festival, there were so many great films at the festival this year, and
Mm,
so I thought we had a chance. I thought there was a possibility we would win something. Excuse me, that we would I thought there was a possibility that we would win something. um, But up until the moment that they said the name, I was pretty sure we weren't gonna win. Uh, and so when we did, it's a confirmation of something. There's always been this feeling in my gut that, yeah, the visions that I see in my head, other people are gonna be interested in as well. And, I've talked already this evening about you also have to be in dialogue with that little voice that says, maybe not, maybe it can't work, maybe maybe this is a bad idea, maybe this won't work out. Um, those two voices are always talking, but that moment, the feeling, the gut feeling was like, yeah, I knew it. I told you so. So, so if people watching out there, if you have that feeling in your gut, you know, learn to write and keep writing until you have something that will inspire other people and get them to sign on. And then tell everybody you're making a movie, and commit. And those moments, finding a store that is out of business that will let you rent it and turn it into a studio, those will come up. The people who who are going to do the things that they're brilliant and fantastic at that you don't know anything about are going to appear. And suddenly you're going to have this ball rolling downhill, gathering size, a snowball, and ride it all the way.
Yeah, I mean, that's very true, but there's more to that, I feel, right? Because you can, there's times you talk to people, right? I've spoken to people and been like, yo, what do you want to do, man? And they're like, I want to be a producer, right? I want to make beats. And you're like, oh, cool. Like, and you talk about music and you're like, oh man, this person knows about music. That's great. That's great. They're like, all I need is an opportunity. And you're like, yeah, no, for real, man. Like, okay, so how's your website, man? What have you got on your website? And I'm like, I mean, I don't have a website right now. Yeah, okay, okay. What about LinkedIn? What's your link? I mean, I don't have that right now. And you're like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
all right, but it, what if you met no ID now, right? You walked out this door, you met no ID, and you're talking to him like you're talking to me, and he's like, oh man, it sounds like you know your shit. Send me some beat, and you've got nothing to send him. What then? Right? What then?
Yeah. What
You know,
indeed?
and that's the thing. There's people that have got the vision, but they're not making the steps to make that a possibility.
Yeah.
And then other times, right, you put together this team. Sometimes, right, they got more experience and like, I mean, I don't think Nate knows how to steer this shit. I'm gonna just move Nate aside. I'm gonna step in. I'm gonna help. Like, like you need to have that belief in you too. So when people are like, hey, no, actually, I think we should do it like this. I mean, I've got the experience, I think, and you have to be like, I mean, I hear what you're saying, but in my head, this is what it is. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like there's belief, there's getting people beside, but you have to have that strength inside to be able to keep it moving. And that's what you did, man.
Yeah.
You made it work. You put together the team, but then you conducted that team.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. It's partly about following through on your potential and making sure that everything you need is ready to go, including a website and a LinkedIn. Um, and also, yeah, it's learning to listen to your team so that you can distinguish their good ideas from their bad ideas, their helpful contributions from things that are going to derail, you know, the ultimate goal. You have to have your eye on the final prize all the time.
Yeah.
The actors are thinking about their performance. The DP is thinking about this shot. The AD is thinking about what shots do we have to get in the day. And you have to listen to all of them and notice what they're all doing and help them do their jobs better while being in charge of getting us all to the goal that ultimately only you have in mind, really. And that is going to change, like the vision you have, you're not going to make the movie you envisioned. You're going to make a movie that's better than that because it's real, but it's going to be a chemical reaction with the real time and real people that are right in front of you. You only have this much time. You only have this much money. You only have these people to work with. And so you're taking that vision and transforming it into a new vision. And you're on the fly. It's updating all the time. Oh, we're not going to do it like that. We're going to do it like this. Oh, she said that line better than I wrote it. It's better that way. We're going to do it that way. Oh, he figured out we can do this in one shot instead of two.
Yeah.
And you say, all right, and you adapt. And
Or you can't get that shot you had in mind.
Yeah, so you got to do something
how
else.
do you make it work without that shot?
Exactly. Yeah. And then in post, you're editing and something wasn't working the way you thought, so you move some stuff around, or the sound designer figures out you can skip having to do this other thing, with a sound cue or a music cue. The composer surprises you and the music is a different character than you envisioned, but you like it more. You're given the gift of collaborating with all these creative people who have their own specialties and their own inner voice, and the whole thing becomes this beautiful mix of everybody's talent and inspiration.
Mm. Yeah. Oh, for sure, man. Like, before you started this journey, man, like, what seemed like it might be the biggest hurdle, right? The biggest issue, the thing that could really just mess everything up. And then once it was done, what actually was the biggest hurdle for you to overcome on this?
It's really interesting. Uh, Once we were committed to doing it, the biggest hurdle was, will we actually manage to get it done? Will we actually manage to um, get every shot we need to tell a complete story? Um, the sort of controlled chaos of it. I was always a little bit afraid something was going to happen, some disaster. I won't curse us all by speculating on what kinds of disasters could have happened, other than that we really were worried that the studio was going to flood, which I've talked about before. The roof leaked and we kept trying to patch it and it kept continuing to leak, and we had equipment in there and all our sets, like one
Mm,
one stop destroy the movie with a big storm. um, but once it was in the can, then the biggest hurdle was trusting that the editing process was really finished. There were so many tweaks and so many changes, and I'm so grateful to Cinemapolis in Ithaca, New York, which is a great independent theater, where we had a couple of test screenings in our beautiful hometown, and the audiences that came to those, who were paid, uh, to fill out a little survey, uh, gave great feedback that really helped confirm, this is working, this is working, this is working, this is working, this is a good movie. This scene's not working, cut it. This scene didn't make sense, they were confused. This plot point, let's see if we could nudge that a little bit. Um, in writing and in editing and everything, the people around you and the audience, the people around you represent the audience that you're trying to tell the story for. They're your friends.
mm,
um, you're not just doing it for yourself, you're doing it for other people, you're doing it to make a connection with other people. And so everything that someone tells you, whether you want to hear it or not, is a fact in the world. You know, you can ignore it or you can explain it away in other ways. And often, usually, what they tell you they would do is the wrong thing to do. But their notes are real, and you have to address them somehow. If somebody's confused, you got to fix it. Like, you might not do what they say you should do, but you do have to address the fact that they were confused. If somebody doesn't like something, that may be a matter of taste. But you should hear why they didn't like it. If they didn't like it because it's not effectively doing the thing it's trying to do, that's a problem for you. If they didn't like it
mm,
because they don't like the thing you're trying to do, that's, they're not the person to watch this movie. So there's a lot of things you really have to listen to other people, and you also have to listen to your gut. And that was hard. But I think it worked out.
mm. See, I always find that an interesting one, right? Because when you're putting together, like, focus groups essentially to look at what you've done and give you that feedback, like, storytelling is so particular, right? I remember the first time I watched Donnie Darko, I
Mhm,
thought that film was so great. I loved it. But then I was reading all of this stuff of people not getting it the first time and all of this, and I was just like, yo, but I thought it was clear,
mhm, mhm,
right? I was like, I don't understand. I thought it was a clear movie. And then I remember watching season 1 of The Witcher, and I really enjoyed that. And then I'm seeing people going, I didn't think it was clear about the time, the time jumps and all of it. And I was like, I thought that was pretty clear. I don't get it.
mhm,
Right. Now, it's not to say they're dumb and I'm super intelligent, because, there's things that I've watched and I'm just like, I don't even understand what I just watched here.
yeah,
But it's very subjective. You know what I mean? So it's just like getting the people in the room who are open to possibilities,
Mm,
right? Aren't trapped into a narrative like, well, a story, unless it's doing these things, it's not working. It's not a story,
right,
right? Unless a character does this or signifies this, then boom, I don't believe in them. So you
right.
need to get those right people in the room to be able to get that quality feedback. But how do you know? So, like, what was that process like for you?
You know, uh, as far as getting people in the room where you're really doing the work, I knew that I could trust my team. I knew that, the producers and the editor and color correctionist and sound designer, composer, all those people, um, I knew that they were the right people for those jobs. Uh, and then as far as the audience goes, um, like what you're talking about, some of it is people have different tastes, different tolerance for ambiguity.
Mm,
Uh, some of it is that maybe people aren't paying attention, and notes from an audience that aren't paying attention, really aren't paying, like they're on their phones, and then they look up and they're like, I don't understand what's going on. Unfortunately, that's a part of the viewership,
yeah.
but I am not of the school that you should be writing to second screen. What do they call it? Second screen content, you know,
Yes.
stuff
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
is supposed to be understood by a person who is not paying attention and is looking at their phone half the time or more than half the time. Um, Call me old fashioned, I think we're telling stories for people that are engaging with it, giving it their undivided attention. They put up that, you know, very uh important little bit of faith. They're saying, you know, I have only so much time in my life and I believe that this will reward 95 minutes of attention. And if they decide to half an hour into it, they don't like it, then that's fine. I totally get it. That they're entitled to retract that proffer of good faith. If you give me that good faith, I'll give you, something that you can understand and that will move you. At least I'll try to, you know.
Mm,
And so if somebody who's given that at the beginning has a thing where they say, I got you, I followed you up to here, but this didn't make sense, I take that seriously. And I say there's gotta be some way to fix it without veering into being too overt, if you don't feel like being overt or whatever. You can protect your style and avoid the tyranny of clarity, while making sure that the audience is treated respectfully.
mm.
Getting what they came for when they put up that bid for I'll give you my attention and suspend my disbelief and watch this thing. You know.
Yeah. No, for real, man. Definitely. Oh man. Yeah. It's man, you've had a wild journey. You
Uh,
had a wild journey, man. And
really,
you know what I mean? You got to the finish line, which is so commendable. Because
thank you.
there's so many people that say they want to make a film, right? But just never get it done.
Yeah, that's true. That's
You
true.
did it.
I'm so lucky to have had the opportunity, but but like you say, it's people, you wait for an opportunity, but you also have to create an opportunity. You have to create
Yeah.
opportunities. And everybody on this film, sometimes people would say to me, like, thanks for the opportunity. But I would say, like, thank you. We all created an opportunity together by coming together on this, creating opportunities for each other is what young creatives have to do, right now, and get to do, uh, because the way the industry is changing, I don't know what's next for this film, but I'm really hoping that it will reach a lot of people. Uh, and it's possible. It's easier than ever if you have the right team to make a really great film.
Mm,
The costs of production have gone down so much. It's expensive, but it's not that expensive. Um, even 20 years ago when people were shooting on film, just the film stock alone would have been a it would have been a much more expensive project we'd had to shoot
oh,
on.
for
I'll tell you.
sure.
I
Yeah.
don't go into it more than that, but digital technologies just making things easier all the time. We have faster and faster compute. I could go on. The technology, the technical aspects. The hurdles are down. So now it's all about the creative. And if you have a good story and if you have talented people to tell it, you can do it.
Oh man. Like I remember, gosh, I think it was 2016, right? When Gareth Edwards made the monster.
Mm-hmm.
And the
Mm-hmm.
big thing was he made it on an iMac,
Yeah,
right?
with all that CGI. Incredible. Incredible.
And it looked so good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also it was the smart thing was it's not showing the monsters every scene, right?
Exactly.
It was that same thing with Jaws, like only show. Although then you learn that Jaws may have been a completely different movie if the robot didn't break, right? Because that's the only reason you don't see the shark all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought what Gareth did with Monsters was incredible.
Mm-hmm.
But now, like that looks, that's old hat compared with what you can do now,
Mm-hmm.
right? You can
Mm-hmm.
make films on your phone. Like Apple worked with Stormzy, and they made that short Big Man. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that was just shot on the iPhone 16 Pro, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's just like, yeah, these barriers to entry have definitely gone down, right? They've definitely gone down. But there's people that worry about that, right? And they worry about things like AI, and they're just like, oh man, this means, you know what I mean? Like anyone can do it, and that means there's going to be all of this stuff and blah, blah, blah. But I'm just like, yes, anyone could potentially do it. Not everyone can actually tell a good story, though.
Right. That's
You know
right.
what I mean? And that's the big thing, because I think that, stuff like AI will get Hallmark type of movies.
Definitely.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But are you going to get something like Inception from AI? You know what I'm saying? Are you gonna
No.
get
No.
those feel? Are you gonna get
No.
Taxi Driver?
No.
Right?
No. 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 And it's going to. I predict that it will make real films made by real people that tell real stories all the more important, and all the
Mm,
more, they'll stand out more, you know?
yeah.
Um, I'm not afraid of it, and I we adopted a policy, because when we were shooting the film, it was right when the AI stuff was really getting going, all those years ago, 2, 3 years ago, which is a lifetime in the kinds of cycles we're seeing with AI.
Mm,
You know, AI is going to have its uses, but we don't use it. We did not use it. We made a policy not to use it on the film, and Hilgartner Productions, we don't use it creatively. Um, you know, uh, when you get to marketing and you're trying to game an algorithm on social media, AI is great for that, but generating images, even the littlest thing, there are artists who can do that, and they're people, and we
oh,
make
yeah.
films as a team of people. We say at the bottom of the credits, made with human hands, because that's what we did. A bunch of human beings came together and put their hands on this thing. And that's why it has life. It's throbbing with life. AI can digest the entire corpus of human, written communication as a series of tokens, and spit out tokens in a predictive way, but it hasn't lived. It hasn't been a person. It doesn't know anything about that. There's no there inside it to have known anything. Whereas you and we know what it's like to be a person. Um, so that's what stories are.
Mm.
They're about being a person.
Well, yeah. And also, if you're telling a story about a girl, you know what I mean, worrying to what to do about, life growing inside her, I
Yeah.
think you need probably real people to write that story.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And even a person who hasn't experienced that, like me, can imagine it in a way that some computer system that has digested everything ever written about it will never understand it. And when you
Mm,
involve me and a real woman, and a group of women who've read the script and all given their perspective on how I should, tweak it and change it so that it reflects their experience even better, AI's got nothing on that. It's not even in the race.
mm. Oh, for sure, man. For sure. Oh, that was just there's one scene I was wondering about, right?
Hmm.
So it's the whole condom situation.
Yes.
So I was thinking, like, was there a thought of having the talk about the morning after pill at that moment.
Mm-hmm. What do
So
you mean?
like, you know what I mean? So once they you know, realize common broken and all of that
Mhm.
kind of jazz, to be like, oh, what should we do? Be like, oh, I mean, there's
Oh,
normally
yeah.
support. Right.
Yeah,
Was there a thought of putting that into that part of the scene rather than a bit
mhm.
later on?
Yeah, we wanted to, the story, if I'll tell you what, if Seth had said at that moment, "No problem, I'll buy you the morning after pill right now, let's drive to pharmacy and we'll pick it up," that would have been a way better outcome for Amy, and there would have been no movie. Um, you know, from a character standpoint, that's a moment where she should have taken more initiative, and he should have been that gentleman who would do that. And for whatever reason, neither of them go there. So if she had asked, maybe he would have said yes, maybe not. If he had volunteered, that would have been the right thing to do, and he didn't. And instead, he drives her home. They awkwardly, she gets out of the car, he ditches her and drives off, and it's such a bleak moment because he he's not treating her well in that moment.
Mm,
Um, and there was a long discussion in the script stage and also with Hayden Frank, who's a good friend of mine who played Seth, about how bad of a guy is this really. Um, and there were drafts where he was a really, really, really bad guy, unambiguously. And I
mm,
think it's a stronger film when he's a little more ambiguous. I think it's a stronger choice that he's not, a total prick. He doesn't think about things from her perspective in that moment or in certain other moments. Um, and there's, a lot of people, a lot of us, can be selfish and not think about others' problems. And the whole thing with Amy is that her whole community lets her down in that way. Her
mm,
mother, her best friend, you know, um, they don't see it from her perspective quite well enough to be there for her. And forget about it when you come to the systems that she's up against with the healthcare system and, her dead end job with her boss who feels like he can change her hours whenever he wants. Even though he's a person who, Randy, cares about her in certain ways. You see that over the course of the story. Again, not everybody is somewhere in between good and bad. Everybody is caught
yeah.
up in something bigger than themselves, and that thing that we're all caught up in, if anything, is the bad guy, the villain, the monster in this horror story. And so the onus is on us to change it. But
Mm,
yeah, no, if they had dealt with it right then and there, it would have been fine. And I'm sure he wasn't thinking about the fact that 40 or 50 bucks is a big deal to her. When she goes to pay for it the following day, she's short a couple of dollars just because she had to buy something to cover up in front of Jenny so that Jenny wouldn't tell her mom about it. So she's always just a dollar short, literally. And
yeah.
that's a situation that people live in too, inequality.
Yeah, I mean, I liked that kind of ambiguity in it and those moments because it's just like, a part of you goes, "Oh man, dude, just let her off that extra cash."
Yeah.
But you understand why you can't let her off that extra cash. You know
I
what I mean?
I'm
Because
sure
it's like,
it's the policy of the pharmacy not to do it. Now, if that pharmacist who's played icily and with a lot of terror by my uncle Jim, his first acting role in a film that I'm aware of, he did a great job. Uh, a lot of people have said that guy should have, if he had just given her a couple of bucks, if he had just said, "Don't worry about it, kid, I got it," she'd have been fine. There's so many little moments when somebody could give you grace and it could change your life. And
mm,
when they don't, it just it adds to this horrible ambiance of paranoia that she's living in.
yeah, yeah. Because you look at Randy and yeah, changing the shifts and all of this, but then there's that bit at the beginning where he's just like, "Man, I built this business."
Hmm.
Right? So you understand he doesn't want his business to go bust. He
Yeah.
wants people that are committed to it.
Hmm.
But then there's times you just be like, yeah, I mean, chill about the hat, Randy. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
a
but
hat.
he wants to exercise this little bit of authority he's got
Yeah.
in this little corner of the world that even if someone comes along and offers him a bunch of money to buy it out from under him, he doesn't want to take it because he wants to have something. He wants to have a stake. He wants to
Mm,
be important to somebody, to the community in some way, and everybody wants that. And yet
yeah.
not everybody gets it.
Yeah, so you have these characters where there are a lot of gray areas. And when it comes to Seth, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, you think Seth, he's not necessarily a horrible person, but he's that person that's just like, I mean, it's not happening to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it's just like, it's fine. Like, I don't have to deal with the consequences. So I'm not really thinking about the consequences.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just even towards the end with the whole, and it's just like, oh, I've just got to do this first. Right. And it's just all of that. And it's just like, oh, dude, come on.
Yeah.
But it's just, we know those people.
Yes.
So it rings true. And that's the big thing. All of these things ring very true because we know those people.
I'm so glad it rings true. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm. So man, like films doing its thing on the festival circuit. Do you have other, screenings coming up? Like what's the situation?
We are actively seeking distribution, and possibly we'll have some more screenings in the near future. Uh, I look forward to sharing more soon. But as far as where I'm sitting, I'm working on the next script. I got another one ready to go after that. There's a lot happening, and I am excited for things to happen fast, and also to take their proper time. Some of these things may gestate for a number of years. But I have never felt more confident than right now. Uh,
Mm,
Coming off this Dances win, seeing all of the positive response that the film has gotten, sharing this moment with the cast and crew and the producers, it's just it's it's what I came here for.
yeah, man, you did the thing. Congrats, you did the thing, Nate.
Thank you.
You know what I mean? Like essentially, right? You graduated the first year of high school, essentially. So you know what I mean? What is next for the film education? Right? Like, what do you do to perfect and learn new skills before you make that next joint?
It's a good question. Uh, this worked so well because I was learning to do something I didn't know how to do, and that's what I got to do next. Pick the next thing, the next harder thing that I don't know how to do, and jump into it with both feet and say, "We'll figure it out." And then you learn by figuring it out. Um, that's the ball game, and we don't stop learning until we're in the ground.
Mm,
Uh, and so I'm so excited to get in over my head in a bigger, crazier pond. Next time and the time after that, and on we go. And I'm hoping the rest of the cast and crew feel that way as well, because what we did was really special, and I'm excited to do it again. I really am.
okay. Any hints of what this next thing could be? You know what I mean? Like, or let's just say, what genres would you like to play in?
I'll tell you about two.
Okay.
Uh, One is an action adventure fantasy sort of sci-fi, and another is a historical drama. Um,
Ooh.
different genres from No Choice. Um, there are so many cool kinds of movie you can make. Uh,
Mm,
and I totally understand and respect people who kind of stick to one, but I don't want to stick to just one. I think there are so many great stories to tell and so many different ways to tell them, and there's a lot to explore.
okay. Any particular period in history?
I'm not going to say
Okay.
for
All
either.
right.
For both of them are not located in our own place and time the way No Choice was. But you'll have to see. You'll have to wait and see.
Okay. All right, man. Well, when you have a next joint to talk about, please stop by for another conversation, Nate.
Will do, Kevin. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, no worries, man. No worries at all. It's been great. I appreciate you sparing the time. But before you go,
Yeah,
you have to let people know how they can keep track of everything you're doing.
absolutely. Follow us on Instagram, No Choice Movie and Hilgartner Productions. And you can go on our websites, nochoicemovie.com and hilgartnerproductions.com. We've got mailing lists on both. Please sign up. Looking forward to sharing more with you guys.
Outstanding. And yeah, you putting stuff out all the time, like BTS, just ideas, that kind of stuff.
Stuff's coming out all the time, yeah. And news is coming up very quickly these days. So looking forward to sharing more.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna be keeping my eyes peeled because I want to know what's next, Nate.
Great, 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 great. Thank you, Kevin.
Hey, no worries, man. Thank you so much for your time. Looking forward to the next one. And Nate, congratulations. First film in the bag. Well done, my friend.
Thank you.
All right. Take it easy.
Take it easy.